What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another video. It's your boy Deep Rhythm, and we back with another video. And we got a special video for y'all today. We got a few things we want to talk about in this video regarding basketball IQ. So let's go ahead and get right into it, right? So a few things we want to talk about today, specifically in this video, is I wanted to highlight and notice how when we talk about pacing the game and getting through your sets, offense, outlets, motions, movement. When we talk about doing this thing right here, it's funny to note how, like, when you first start off learning about offensive techniques and offensive patterns and movements and running your sets, the first thing we like to do, especially like, when we're younger as when we're new to, like, running an offense, you know what I'm saying, particularly at a younger age, we tend to just go through the motion, right? We tend to just go through the motion, and our first instinct is just to, like, run through the offense, set the screen here, do this, do that, and we don't consciously think about, like, why. What's the reasoning behind setting the screen here, and what is it that we're actually looking for in order for us to, like, best position ourselves to be most to set the to have to bring about the right effect off the screen that we set, right? So it's just a difference in between in the comparing the two of pace. When you commit to an offense and you have pace versus when you just go through the motion, and the difference in between when you know what to look for in an offense. I think is one thing worth noting. And when you talk about, this sort of thing of going through the motion and just, being able to, learn and develop the patterns of, set the screen here and, running the offense, textbook, right, to how it's drawn up or how it's written up, right? And then, after, constantly learning offensive sets and learning, the functions of running an offense and just movement in general, you then get to understanding of, when to, like, set the screen, and what type of effect you're trying to get setting the screen, in a sense of where you're doing things for a specific purpose. You see, something, a big or a defender out of place. So you go ahead and you set the screen at a particular time, and you're utilizing subtle changes in order to try to shake the defense, right? Into thinking that they're getting some, and trick the defense into making, the action work, right? So there's just little things that you do, with proper pace to be more effective in, these little details. The more you start to train these things, you start to look for these things, right? You start to like cater, you start to observe things like this more, in terms of now, you're observing, you know what to look for, particularly in the offense. When you're running an offense, you know what to look for, right? So you kind of pace yourself, and you go through the game sort of pacing yourself, waiting for the right opportunity to commit a certain action a specific way, and implement certain details. But when you first get on the court, and you don't have yet pace. You kind of just go through the motion and you kind of just do whatever. And it's like, okay, since I go through the motion of, whatever I'm trying to do, like I'm good, and that's the difference, right? Because when you can have an actual, when you gain experience and when you gain understanding that um, pace isn't pace is important, because now you're looking for specific things to actually bring about a specific effect in the game versus someone who's simply just playing, someone who's just going through the motions. Like if you just go through the motion, you're really not going to get an effect out of the offense that you're running, and that's sort of one of the things that you have to learn from the time you first start, like, actually hooping and running and, going through movements like in an offense versus later on when you start to develop, like, the specific things to look for, and then, being able to being able to actually bring about an effect and have more of a desired result within the offense. From being able to utilize these things, and you get utilize certain things that you look for, details that you look for that you normally wouldn't look for without that extra layer of pacing that's been developed. And it's like you're making the game simple, right? You know what to look for. The game becomes a lot more simple, and you start to focus on a lot more details, and the offense that you run looks a lot more simple, because now it's like you know what to look for, and because you know what to look for, you can run a set, and just by you being very detailed within the movement and how you run the action, right? You can get that much easier buckets just by how you run the action, and it's not necessarily effort, or exerting a bunch of energy, all this energy to go through the motion, right? And it's the same thing with building a training regime, right? Because in a sense, as an athlete, if you're a basketball player, you develop yourself depending on the function or role that you play on the team. If you're someone who's on a team and you know that the team utilizes you for your ability to run, okay, obviously I'm gonna make sure. I'm gonna run, right? I'm gonna make sure I'm saying I'm able to run sprints. I'm able to run sprints, play good and hard defense, because I know that's what the team expects of me, or maybe be a 3-point shooter. I expect, I expect them to, I expect, my team to demand threes from me. So I'm going to make sure that I'm able to shoot threes, right? I know that that's what they're going to require of me, right? And as well as if I'm a slasher, right? Someone who's, they expect to cut to the basket, or, be the big, or whatever the position may be, it makes it that much easier, because now instead of just going through the motions of basketball training or developing a training program or training regime, I'm now just catering to my position, and that's another, example of that, right? Of being able to play with pace, versus, just going through the motion, right? That you develop over time. So that's the important thing to note, and that's what we I think we touched on this point pretty good. That's what we wanted to really just break down and talk about. I think this is a pretty good short little subtle breakdown, but there was also one thing I did want to note beyond that, and it's other than pacing, it's also what you do in an offense, right? What you do in an offense in the sense to where like, um, uh, you know, you're willing to be physical. You're willing to play inside. You're willing to drive the ball, and you're willing to, attack the basket. I think the most lethal teams by far, not even the most lethal teams, my bad. I know for me in specific, I'm at my most lethal um, when I'm attacking the basket. People underestimate attacking the basket, man. Like, I think folks underestimate that because folks want to just shoot threes nowadays, but yeah, people underestimate just your ability to attack the basket. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because like, if you can get to the cup on every go, like can't nobody stop you, right? That's 2 points every time, and can't nobody stop you. That's the easiest. Well, not the easiest bucket, but it is the easiest bucket because if I work hard enough and I train myself to be able to get those buckets every time, just driving to the rim, then it's like, you know what I'm saying? I have the energy to drive to the rim every time. You don't have the energy to guard that. So that's easy buckets for me over and over again. You know what I'm saying? And that's one of the things I developed, playing ball. Like, I may not had a very good jump shot or 3-point jump shot, right, when I was in high school, but I dang sure could drive to the cup every single time. Every time I touched the ball, I could drive to the cup and get me 2 baskets or get to the line. So that's the other thing, right? I did want to talk about, right? It's just the nature of just driving the ball and just getting that layup. Like, if you can do that and you can train that like over and over again repetitively, man, can't nobody mess with you. Like, can't nobody stop you. So that's the other thing I wanted to talk about, is just driving to the cup, and just how underestimated that is and how like underappreciated or under talked about that is. Just being able to fly at the rim, like just repetitively over and over again. Right. And that's the other thing. Like that's that's an unstoppable force, right? That's how you know what I'm saying, become, or at least that's how I became, I know the feeling of being unstoppable that way, like just driving over and over again. So, yeah, that's my second message for you, for y'all today. And to sum it all up, in this video, especially that second point, it's just like when you understand, like you can get easy bucks that way. It's like imagine the things that certain things that you could be doing, right, in order to become, in order to gain an advantage, right, to where you could just continually just do things that other, because other, fire at things because other folks ain't gonna do that, buckets that you can get and hit repetitively over and over again because other folks ain't gonna do it. You know what I'm saying? So that's the other thing, right? Nobody else is doing it. Nobody else is gonna do it. So it's like these are easy buckets that you could just continually just utilize and take advantage of and get repetitively over and over again. And that's my other thing, right? And it's like, just how does this apply to, of course, training, my God, training, right? Some training things that other folks just not going to do, but you can do, and it could give you an advantage, or physical, actual things, that you can do, that can become a leverage to you, or that become an asset to you that you can benefit off of, right? Or that you can capitalize off of. Certain things you can capitalize off of that nobody else can. That comes from hard work. So, that's the other important thing, right? And that's going to conclude this video right here. I think we touched on each and every one of these points, okay. But yeah, like I said, there are some things that other folks, haven't, there may be some things that There may be some things that you could possibly do that could give you an edge, or some things that separate separate folks from other folks. And these things, these characteristics right here, there might be some things that you can do, like I said, to capitalize off of, to give yourself some advantages. And and some of these things may resemble just like flying at the rim. You know what I'm saying? It's just dirty work that nobody else is just willing to do. But if you did, it becomes that much more of an advantage to where you can just score a basket and fire off and get a bucket every single time, right? Every single time. And nobody else likes to do it, but you do, right? You start to love flying at the rim. Like once you do it enough, it just becomes second nature to you, to just do that. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think that's something worth noting. Kind of reminds me of business, just things that other folks ain't willing to do, but then you just fly at it like over and over again, right? So, you just fly at it. So, I'm going to conclude this video right here. Peace, love. I'll see y'all in the next one. Hope y'all can take knowledge and some gain from this short little video right here. Peace, love, and we are out this joint. Let's get it.